Tonight on Currents News, Catholic education around the country is facing a crisis. How will parents out of work pay the tuition? The Diocese of Brooklyn has some answers.
Futures in Education for Brooklyn and Queens is taking action. I'm Emily Druby with the story of their emergency relief fund.
And more help to the deadliest county in the U.S. Knights of Columbus gathering in Brooklyn to feed the hungry. Plus this.
There's no telling when a Brooklyn priest will become a New Jersey bishop. For now, Father Kevin Sweeney's not letting anything stop him. I'm Jessica Easthope, and I'll have the story.
An exclusive report on the private phone conversation President Trump had with Catholic leaders around the country. Christopher White obtained the audio. And there's a lot of buzz over universal income. Could it work in the United States? Pope Francis thinks it could be possible. An expert weighs in.
We have to support all those people that we are telling you need to stay home.
Good evening, I'm Christine PERSICHETTE. Catholic education in New York is facing a potential cash crisis with so many breadwinners out of work for the first time in their lives. Cardinal Timothy Dolan telling a national TV audience this morning that online learning is going great, but he's concerned because now is the time when parents apply for the upcoming school year.
They're saying, oh boy, as we're beginning to budget for next year, I'm afraid we're going to be unable to afford the tuition.
The Diocese of Brooklyn is already taking emergency action so parents can keep their kids in Catholic schools. Futures in Education for Brooklyn and Queens is bringing relief to families that are struggling with tuition. Currents News' Emily Druby has the story.
The pandemic is causing so much pain and putting dreams at risk. Some parents who want their kids to get a great Catholic education are worried. And that's why Futures in Education for Brooklyn and Queens is stepping up big time.
As of right now, I'm unemployed and it would financially help me a lot.
Rosanna GUZMAN's daughter Liana and son Marcos are students at Divine Mercy Catholic Academy in Ozone Park, Queens, and she wants them to stay there. But she's out of work after 22 years with the same travel company, and money is tight.
This is the first time where I've experienced being laid off, so this is something new, and it's emotionally and financially, a struggle.
Futures has now created a COVID-19 emergency relief fund to help with tuition for kids like hers.
It means putting food on the table or paying a tuition. We all know that tuition is going to be the first thing to go.
Rosanna enrolled her children at Divine Mercy because she loves so much about the school, a welcoming atmosphere with an emphasis on faith, plus smaller class sizes.
And I see a big difference in learning.
When it comes to testing, Catholic school students generally outperform New York City public school students in every category. Rosanna has received assistance from Futures before. She's looking to get $400 from the COVID-19 Emergency Relief Fund, enough to cover the rest of her kids' tuition.
It's a great help for many families.
Futures has always been there for the Brooklyn Diocese, but now the need is even greater. The emergency fund already has 1,000 applications asking for $1.5 million in scholarships.
Well, we have over 20,000 students in our grammar schools. So, most of them are all, in financial straits right now. So I know that number is going to grow drastically.
Futures is tallying up the need. So far, no emergency fund money has been given out yet. On the Upper East Side, Emily Druby, Currents News. Back to you, Christine.
Emily, Monsignor Jamie said they anticipate the need to be great. Do they have any idea yet how much they'll be giving out?
Yeah, so Monsignor Jamie heads up the Futures team as Vicar for Development in the Diocese of Brooklyn. He says they won't have a good idea of how much emergency relief they'll be able to give out until the end of May. But last year, Futures provided $7.4 million in scholarships to 5,000 students. Christine?
Thank you. You can help out in this COVID-19 emergency by making a donation at futuresineducation.org/relief. We'll repeat the website at the end of the newscast. The enormous hit on jobs is also making it tough for families to put food on their tables. Catholic Charities Brooklyn and Queens, along with the Knights of Columbus, had another pop-up food distribution to help. At St. Michael's St. Malachi Parish in East New York, Brooklyn, more than 9,000 meals were handed out on Friday. Over the last 2 weeks, Catholic Charities has provided nearly 20,000 meals in Corona, Queens. The coronavirus crisis is disrupting the plans of Brooklyn priest Father Kevin Sweeney. Pope Francis recently chose him to be the new bishop of the Diocese of Paterson, New Jersey. Taking over that post is a little different now because of everything going on. Currents News' Jessica Easthope has the story.
Father Kevin Sweeney, pastor of St. Michael's Church in Sunset Park and now bishop-elect of the Diocese of Paterson, is making a big transition at a very turbulent time.
We got to deal with the circumstances that life gives us, that God gives us day by day. So I'm sure it would be very different.
The coronavirus pandemic has delayed a lot, but Father Sweeney says it's forcing him to learn more about his parishioners and his faith.
When we give, we receive, and I've tried to give what I can, but I've received so much more, especially as I think of the community here at St. Michael's and the inspiration of their faith and the people of faith here. So I'll certainly bring that with me to my new assignment in ministry in Paterson.
It comes at a time when leadership within the church is needed more than ever. People are relying on their parishes to seamlessly live stream Mass and make services available to them, whether it's virtually or from a safe distance.
I'm striving to serve the people here in the parish, and our ministry has changed so much and our lives have changed so much. But even in streaming masses and praying with people over the phone, these are the times that we're living in.
Though Father Sweeney hasn't been able to fully immerse himself in the unique culture of the Paterson Diocese, he hasn't let the pandemic stop him from getting to know his new community and those who will help him lead it.
Getting to know the church in Paterson, even I guess virtually or by phone and text and email. This past Wednesday, I sent an message to the priest of the Diocese of Paterson, and wonderfully encouraging responses and welcome, and so that's been a very positive experience.
As for when Father Sweeney's ordination and installation will take place, that's still up in the air, but the physical move to Paterson is expected within the coming days and weeks. In Sunset Park, Jessica Easthope, Currents News.
In a call with religious leaders to talk about when churches could open for services again amid the virus crisis, President Donald Trump apparently asked for election support. The national correspondent for The Tablet and Crux, Christopher White, got the exclusive story. He joins us now. And Chris, what was the president's message to Catholic leaders and educators on Saturday?
Well, Christine, this was a call in which the president had really said education is going to be the focus, particularly how to help Catholic schools and struggling parents as they seek to send their kids to Catholic institutions. But in a very wide-ranging conversation that lasted well over an hour, the president did talk about education, but he was much more excited, if you will, to talk about some other signature Catholic issues such as opposition to abortion, religious liberty, and really sort of kind of drum up Catholic support in anticipation of his re-election bid this November.
Who was on that call and what were their reactions to the president?
Well, this was a call that kind of ballooned very quickly. Initially, it started off as a call with just a number of Catholic bishops and key educational officials. 600 participants were on the call, but among them, Cardinal Dolan of New York, Archbishop Jose Gomez of Los Angeles, who's the president of the U.S. bishops, Bishop Michael Barber, who is the committee head for Catholic education, and also Cardinal Sean O'Malley of Boston as sort of the key sort of figures that asked the opening scripted questions on the call.
All right, a lot of issues were discussed, from abortion, like you said, to school choice. So what comes next?
Well, the major takeaway for a number of the Catholic leaders was that Catholic schools need help. And they're facing an unprecedented crisis right now in terms of the COVID-19 pandemic. And the president, while his administration has guaranteed funding through June, a lot of Catholic leaders are concerned about what happens in the fall. So to quote Cardinal Sean O'Malley, we need help and we need it immediately when it comes to tuition assistance programs, whether that takes the form of micro grants or some other assistance directly to parents. That's what they're pushing for. So that's what comes next for Catholic officials. For the president, I think he sees this as a real opportunity to try to shore up support among Catholics. And so I think we're going to kind of see this type of outreach to Catholics continue on behalf of his reelection campaign.
All right, national correspondent for the Tablet and Crux, Christopher White, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Christine.
Around the country, more states are getting back to business as leaders try to keep patrons from becoming patients. At the same time, calls for increased testing grow louder. Whitney Wild has the story from Washington.
After Georgia's reopening over the weekend,
I literally felt the burden being lifted off my shoulders.
more states are looking to relaunch their economies.
We need money.
Colorado, Montana, and Minnesota are among those that plan to ease restrictions in coming days. In some cases, those decisions clash with data that doesn't yet show a sustained decline in confirmed coronavirus infections, as recommended by the White House. In Colorado, cases are rising, but Governor Jared Polis is committing to reopening.
We're encouraging that every Coloradan who can works from home, and every business that doesn't have to open right away waits a few weeks.
Help is on the way for small businesses.
Our business dropped roughly 50%. Our bank account just got wiped out immediately.
Monday marks the first day owners can apply for another round of Small Business Administration loans after a $484 billion package enacted last week flooded cash into the program. As those owners breathe a sigh of relief, medical experts are holding their breath, worried tests are too slow and too few.
We have to realize that we have to have a breakthrough innovation in testing.
Right now, we're doing about 1.52 million per week. We probably should get up to twice that as we get into the next several weeks, and I think we will.
In Washington, Whitney Wild, Currents News.
Mayor Bill de Blasio is picking his wife, CHIRLANE MCCRAY, to lead one of several task forces on reopening the city. The city's First Lady will co-chair a council that's going to investigate racial inclusion. De Blasio is saying the pandemic has, in his words, laid bare racial disparities.
We're going to build something more fair. We're going to build something for everyone. This recovery has to have that spirit, that New York spirit that everyone matters.
When de Blasio was asked why he appointed his wife, he pointed to her work with the city's mental health initiative, which critics have labeled ineffective. Here are some more headlines. An over-the-counter heartburn drug is being tested at major New York hospitals on coronavirus patients. Pepcid is being given to more than 150 people. Results of the trials are weeks away. The city is closing at least 40 miles of streets to traffic to give residents more space for outdoor recreation. And the state's Democrats are canceling the June 23rd presidential primary, calling it a beauty contest. Speculation about the health of North Korean leader Kim Jong-un is growing. Reports first surfaced that Kim may be unwell 2 weeks ago. Multiple outlets have reported that he's dead or in critical condition following a heart procedure. But South Korea's presidential advisor told CNN that the North Korean leader is alive and well. And the president of South Africa just received a letter from Kim. There's a lot more news headed your way. With churches closed, Italian bishops are openly ready for battle. We'll tell you why they're claiming religious discrimination. Plus, it's back to work for Boris Johnson, and he's got a message for people in the UK. And loosening lockdowns around the world as everyone fights the coronavirus.
Now you can help us put your faith in the news. The next time you capture a newsworthy event, send us your pictures or video. It's easy. Go to netny.tv/sendus, and you may see your submission on Currents News.
Italy, one of the hardest hit countries, has announced that it will begin reopening its economy and daily life in just a few days. But the news is angering Italian bishops because churches are still slated to be closed. Melissa Butts is in Rome with more on what some are calling a battle for religious freedom.
Italy's bishops are complaining that religious freedom is being stifled in the country as the government is making plans to get back to normal. Baptisms, confirmations, weddings, and masses are still not permitted in Italy. The Italian government suspended them on March 8th and will only allow funerals starting May 4th. Those services are limited to 15 masked people, all with social distancing. Italian bishops are demanding religious freedom be respected as hair salons, museums, and restaurants are opening instead of churches during the second phase of Italy's lifting of restrictions. The church asks to be able to celebrate Mass with the people again, organizing safely without recklessness or superficiality the life of their communities. Entering into phase 2, Italians seem torn if Masses should be allowed once again. The churches need to open, also as a matter of faith in what is happening in this period. I believe the churches need to remain closed to avoid that a lot of people will be all together in the same place. Just because it's a religious motive doesn't make it a good reason to open. From a safety point of view, maybe it's better that all churches are closed. Pope Francis has not held a public audience since March 1st. When the lockdown began, he asked that churches remain open for faithful to pray in this difficult time. The Vatican has not announced when their public events will resume, but they have been following Italy's recommendations on most COVID-19 issues. We'll see if Pope Francis will intervene on this religious matter. In Rome, Melissa Butts, Currents News.
The coronavirus crisis has put many people around the world in a difficult financial situation, and experts are searching for a way to help. Even Pope Francis, in an Easter Sunday message, suggested that now may be the time for a universal basic income. Here to talk more about this option is Catholic economist at St. John's University, Charles Clark. And Charles, the pontiff describes the goal of universal basic income as, quote, so human and so Christian. But is this goal realistic?
Well, it's something that all rich countries could afford. It's just a matter of taking part of our overall income and dividing it equally, say at the poverty level, so that no one falls below the poverty level. Normally that's done because you want to fight income inequality or because the economy is going through a lot of transitions because of technological change. But now with the coronavirus, with so many people being affected, then it's a way to make sure that no one becomes incomeless and gets thrown into poverty because of how we are fighting the virus.
So how would something like that happen? What would universal basic income look like in America?
Well, it would be you could do it every citizen or every adult. Most proposals have one rate for adults set at what the poverty level is, and so you get a check every month, probably go straight into your bank account, and then there'd be a lesser amount for how many children you have in your family.
What if you make a lot of money? Would you still get that money?
Well, the idea of a universal basic income is that everyone gets it. And so there's no income threshold. However, when you pay for it, obviously people who pay higher incomes will contribute more to the system than people with lower incomes.
Through your taxes?
Yes.
Now, would the world economy, including its financial institutions, perhaps be in better shape if universal basic income systems were already in place when this crisis struck? What do you think about that?
Well, it would, because it allows you to absorb the shock of all these people now not having incomes. You have the effect of people losing their jobs, which is terrible, but losing their jobs, which is an important part of who we are, and losing your ability to pay your bills and support your families, it just makes it doubly worse. And particularly with our main weapon in fighting this virus is having people not work and stay home, then we have to support all those people that we are telling you need to stay home so that we can get a hold of this virus.
So how about in the developing world? You mentioned rich countries. Is UBI even possible in poor countries?
Well, it's interesting. When I started working on this, I thought that poor countries couldn't afford it, but it actually has been successfully integrated in many poor countries, very successfully. In Mexico, they had a family income. There was some criteria. Children had to go to school and go to the doctors once a year, but it had a big effect on reducing poverty, and they had similar one in Brazil. They now have experiments running in Africa, and they're showing that not only are you reducing poverty, but you're increasing health outcomes, and people are working more because they're able to leave jobs that aren't making much and go to other areas. They're able to start new businesses because now they have some money so they have security that they can try going out on their own. And so it's probably a better policy for developing countries than it is for rich countries.
So really quickly, do you think we're at the point where this universal basic income goes from being a fantasy to being looked at as a viable economic path forward?
Well, I think if this virus is going to be like the 1918 pandemic and it's going to last 2 years, I think we will have to adopt something like this. And I think once we adopt it, it will become permanent. The state of Alaska already has a basic income. It's based on the oil revenues. It's called the Permanent Fund. It is the most popular program, government program in the United States, because I've never met anyone who doesn't like getting a check every month. It's very popular. So once you start it, it will be hard to phase it out.
All right. Thank you so much, Catholic economist at St. John's University, Charles Clark. Thanks for joining us.
Okay. Thank you.
British Prime Minister Boris Johnson is back to work. The first world leader known to have had coronavirus is now leading his nation's response to it. His message outside of 10 Downing Street: don't give up on the lockdown yet. At least 20,000 in the UK have died from the virus. In Spain, children were finally able to get a breath of fresh air. The country, which has some of the strongest confinement regulations, is now allowing children under 14 years old to spend an hour outside per day after weeks of being cooped up indoors.
It feels great. It feels like you got a lot of space around you. Freedom.
1 hour a day may not seem like much, but after 6 weeks inside, people in Spain see it as a sign that this national nightmare might soon be over. Some signs of life in Switzerland, too. Barber shops, flower shops, and nail salons, just some of the businesses that were allowed to open today. The country is starting to ease restrictions with a 3-stage plan. Primary schools are set to open starting on May 11th. Higher education will reopen in June. Meanwhile, in New Zealand, they're praising their, quote, elimination of coronavirus. The Director General of Health says businesses and schools will be allowed to partially reopen on Tuesday with social distancing. Public spaces will remain closed. On Monday, New Zealand reported only 1 new coronavirus case. Still to come on Currents News, a big standing ovation for a very little hospital patient. Plus, a precious commodity given away for free to senior citizens. A 6-month-old recovering from coronavirus received a guard of honor and standing ovation from doctors and nurses. Baby Erin is moving out of isolation at a hospital in Liverpool, England. The infant was diagnosed with the virus 2 weeks ago. She also has a heart condition that put her at great risk. Erin will remain in the hospital for treatment, but she is making good progress. A welcome gift for some seniors after a Virginia Medicare company gave out 1,500 free face masks.
God bless you for what you're doing.
That's very kind.
May wonderful things come to you. Thank you so much. God bless you.
Yep.
The company, Active Medicare Solutions, wants to make sure their older neighbors can safely leave their homes and go out in public. Before we leave you tonight, here's the website where you can help Catholic school students during the COVID-19 crisis. You can make a donation at futuresineducation.org/relief. The money will help students whose families have lost jobs pay their tuition. That's futuresineducation.org/relief. And that is Currents News. I'm Christine PERSICHETTE. Thank you for joining us because we are putting your faith in the news. Hope to see you again next time. Good night.